Welcome, everyone. We are so happy that you're joining us today, and we're just going to give folks a little bit of time to join us as the attendees come into the Zoom webinar. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen and just briefly give you guys an intro to what we're going to talk about today. Really, in-player live captioning with subtitling and dubbing is almost something that I would say was kind of like science fiction in a lot of ways in the past. And now we've actually made it a reality. And this is all part of what we're going to talk about today in our HLS in-player webinar. We consider it a transformative live streaming experience. And during the webinar, we're going to be showing you how it works. We're going to show you demonstrations of it working in real time. And we'll also be sending you links to the actual live stream so you could check it out on your side. And not only does it work very well, but it also is in sync. So that's really a new thing for live captioning and subtitling. And we go to the next level because we're actually also introducing voice dubbing to it as well. Some housekeeping. Please feel free to post questions in the chat. And during the webinar, we're also going to have polls. Please participate in those polls. And of course, at the end of the webinar, we're going to have our really important questions and answers segment, where we're going to discuss, all the things that you guys wanted to know about captioning and live streaming. So let's just give folks a little bit more time, and then we'll begin in just a minute. All right, we're back. And thank you again for joining us. For those of you who have just joined, we appreciate your time. And today we have something really special. We're going to talk about the new way of doing captioning, subtitling, and dubbing for live streaming, particularly with HLS. We consider it a transformative live streaming experience because up until now, all of this stuff had to happen upstream from the live streaming with special hardware, with all kinds of limitations. And we're going to talk about how this kind of breaks those barriers and allows people to take their existing live stream and immediately get all these accessibility items added to their live streaming and do it in a way that is very simple and very cost effective. All right, let's move on. SyncWords, for many years, we've done video on demand. And when you talk about translation and you talk about dubbing, typically people think about video on demand, but they don't really think about it. And like, how can I do this live? If I have a 24/7 news channel, or if I have a live event or a conference that I want to attend, how can all this work? How can I do speech to text? How can I do AI translated subtitles? How can I do dubbing of voices in other languages, all done live in real time? And not only can you do it, but if you can actually get to that point, how do I make it so that it fits into the format that is friendly for live streaming, and specifically HLS streaming, which is, in my opinion, the standard right now for serious live streaming content. So when you're watching your favorite news channel or basketball championships, you're gonna do is going to the website and you're gonna watch the live stream. You're gonna go to your mobile phone. You're gonna watch the live stream, and all of this is HLS streaming essentially. All right. So in order to do all of that, you have to have these three different layers working in unison, in harmony. You have to have speech to text layer, where the AI captioning has to work. It has to be accurate. you have machine translation, and you have voice synthesis. And all of these things have to be done perfectly in sync so that you can deliver something that is compelling, that allows users to then select what you want to watch, how you want to hear it, in what language you want to read it. All of these things have to work in unison. And we've built an entire platform that has all of these elements so that customers can actually take advantage of it and experiment with their live streams. Right now, I'm going to take a little bit of time and just put up a poll very quickly. Within that poll, please go ahead and share your answers. The poll is basically, are you currently using automatic captioning or translation for your live streaming? Please answer that question. And then the next question, if you scroll down, what challenges do you face when it comes to subtitle translation for live streaming? Now, you may have a lot more challenges than this, but we wanted to get an idea of the kind of challenges that you're facing when you're leveraging automatic captioning. All right, looks like people are putting in their answers. It's still going, and we'll end it. Go ahead. I think here we can end it. All right. So if you look at the results, a lot of people are considering it. It seems like 71%. And that's typical because the norm is, right, we're using a human captioner, and they're wondering, how can I get accuracy? That's really important. And also the other aspect is like, how do we scale, right? So we have like several different channels, several different events. It may not be cost effective to do it any other way than with automatic captioning. The second one, we see kind of like in between. You're looking for something reliable that can translate, and accuracy is really important. So all of these things are really, really key, right? Like, how do we get accuracy? How do we get, that level of performance that is good enough to deliver? Well, the truth is that now, like a lot of these engines, you can train them in advance. So for example, speech to text. If I want to use speech to text, it's critical that you use a speech to text system that allows you to add a dictionary to it. And then you can get higher accuracy there. The same thing is true with machine translation. You can add a glossary if you want certain things translated a certain way. And by training these engines ahead of your event or your live stream, you're going to get that high level of accuracy, right? The rest is just about making sure the audio quality is good, that you send it in order to get good results. All right, so let's move on to streaming now. HLS captioning support. It's really a popular streaming protocol, but more importantly, it's a very flexible streaming protocol, right? If you know HLS, you know that the way it works is with a manifest file. It's essentially like a document that references where the stream is coming from your content delivery network or CDN. And because of that, it allows a lot of versatility and scalability, right? If you have something in the HLS manifest that I can put into an HLS player, which there's so many different players out there. Let's say you're using Theo Player, for example. In Theo Player, you can actually take a manifest, you can put it into it, and it's just going to reference where the streams are coming from. So naturally, it needs a reference to the video stream. It needs a reference to the audio if it's a separate stream. And it needs a reference to all the variants. So if you have different resolutions and bandwidths. But that also introduces the ability to have references, or what we call URI entries, in the playlist that have subtitles that have captioning, that have AI dubbing. And that's really the main aspect of this, right? So there's no need for me to go back into my video workflow for streaming and say, hey, I need to change something in upstream from my live stream in order to get this translation. You could try to do that, but it's not necessary. It's just a matter of creating these new elements that you can put into the playlist so that the player can actually render them out. What about getting that stream into speech to text? Because obviously we have to create the text in order to translate it, in order to do the dubbing. Well, you can also pull the audio from an existing live stream. So for example, if I'm live streaming right now and I go to a website, the audio is there already. So there's a system here in SyncWords where we can actually read the audio and immediately run the speech to text system in order to do the captioning, the subtitle translation, and the AI dubbing. So there's no need for you to send us a separate audio stream in order for us to work. It just simply works with what's already there, your audio. And of course, there's the ability to then customize what you want to leverage and send out. So if I have good speech to text coming in from the stream, I now have the ability to say, hey, I want this language, I want Japanese, I want Greek, I want Spanish, and then I also want voices. You can have separate audio menu within a player that can have voices that you can select, right? So for example, if I have Spanish, maybe my target audience is going to be from Argentina. So naturally, you can find a voice that has an Argentinian accent. And this is a synthetic voice, mind you. So within SyncWords, there's the ability to select not only the voice, but have the voice tailored to your audience. And now the Spanish voice is going to sound with an Argentinian accent and in that style. So there's ways to customize everything, and it all happens from this HLS pull mechanism. And now I'm going to just briefly pause, and I'm going to show you an example of something that's live right now. Hold on for 1 second while I set that up. But basically, we found, let's say, a channel here. I'm going to just share my screen once more. And in this channel, this is Romanian channel. It's actually a live news channel that we just happened to find on the internet. And we've run it through our HLS pull. Within that, we're able to actually generate the captions live. And we're also able to translate them. Here's the Spanish. Here's the English, right? We can also do things like Japanese. And all of these things are happening in real time because it's a real-time stream essentially.
Regulii sunt exfoliere, dar
And
exfolierea să
what we're
fie
going to do is
blândă,
we're
nu
going to share this
exagerăm.
with you.
Orice
In
exagerare
addition to
înseamnă
that,
inflație.
you can also select a different language here. There's Spanish, there's English, there's Japanese. So you can actually hear it in a different language. So all of these things weren't in the original stream, right? The original stream basically was just the live stream. And with SyncWords, we're able to generate these new menu items so that people can enjoy all these different types of accessibility in real time. We're going to go ahead and stop sharing right now, and we're going to share the URL on the chat. So for example,
Fenomenul în viața de cuplu.
Tesla începe producția supercomputerului Dojo. Pare că de corelarea dintre bursele americane și piața.
El ordenador continúa la correlación entre las bolsas estadounidenses y el mercado de criptomonedas. Ha tenido un día
and
シモナ・ハレプがドーピング裁判のロンドン法廷で審理を受けた。
Un veredicto esperamos 2 semanas, y el presidente Iohannis ha promulgado la ley que elimina las pensiones especiales de los parlamentarios. Mientras tanto, la ley ha sido impugnada ante el TCC. Un proyecto de ley impulsado por un diputado del PNL y otro del PSD eleva el
threshold from 5 to 7. Vulnerable as the UDMR. The budget deficit will jump to 6% of GDP.
So one thing you'll also notice is that everything is perfectly in sync. And that's another thing that we can do is we can do something called latency hiding. So we can measure the delay on the segments, and we can get everything to just appear perfectly timed up. So we're going to share this link on the chat. If my moderator can do that, you can also watch it on your time. But we're going to go continue with the webinar right now, and you guys can actually check that out on your own. Okay. Let me go ahead and back and share my screen here. So that was a perfect example of HLS push, or pull rather, where we can pull the audio and do all these things that I'm talking about. And you saw that the AI voice dubbing is happening as well. And one key aspect of that is that there's no transcoding of the video required. We don't need to take a video that's already live streamed and do anything to it. We don't need to touch it, right? Because the reason is because we're not inserting like special user data into the video at all, right? That's kind of the way that captioning worked for live streaming, and it still works that way. But what we're doing is we're just augmenting the playlist so that there's no need to touch the video in any way. So if you have a 4K video, you have 7 variants with different resolutions. You know, you probably paid a lot of money to make sure that that original video quality is really good. And so the last thing you need is for us to touch it in any way. So what we do is we pass that through, but we add those different playlist segments, playlist elements like the VTT captioning, the subtitling, translation, and the AI voice dubbing. Okay. What about HLS compatibility and enhanced UX? Every single HLS player we've tried, including on mobile devices, has worked just fine. All of these players already off the shelf, even you know, like premium top shelf players like Theo Player, our manifest will work on it. Once we add our manifest to those players, you'll actually see you know, like different menu items there where you can actually select that particular AI dub or subtitle language. It's quite good. So there's really no reason to worry about compatibility. It's going to work right off the bat. So here's where seamless integration into standard streaming workflows and platforms are really critical. But before we get into that, I'd like to share the second poll. So if my moderator can put that up on screen. Okay, so the next poll is AI dubbing and satisfaction. Have you explored or implemented AI dubbing solutions for your streaming platform or broadcast TV? Please go ahead and answer those questions. We encourage you to participate. And then the second question is, how satisfied are you with the current state of AI-based solutions for captioning, subtitling, and AI dubbing and live streaming? Well, if this is the first time that you've seen it, then you know we'd like to know if you feel it's satisfactory, you know, and we'll share that live stream that we just showed right in the chat. Okay. All right, we'll just give people a few more minutes, or like just a minute rather. Okay, I think that's good. Let's go ahead and end that poll and let's look at the results. Okay, it looks like people are interested in exploring it further. You know, there's a lot still work to be done, but I have to say, like, the latest AI dubbing solutions for streaming are really good. You know, the voices sound very natural. There's different accents. There's all kinds of options there. So if anyone wants to take the challenge, you know, we'd love to offer you a trial to test this with your live stream. And as far as like how satisfied with the current state of AI based, you know, I think, you know, I can see why most people say it's neutral. My particular opinion on that is that there's a lot of different AI engines, right? There's new generative AI models. There's all kinds of things like that. And people are unsure. They're not sure which one's the best. They haven't tried all of them. And what we do with SyncWords is we give you access to all of them inside of our platform, right? So we have different engines to fit every need and every language. So we're not limited to just English. We can go from any language to any language using all these variety of AI models. So our platform is really a great testing ground for anyone that wants to try it. All right, so back to the webinar. Seamless integration into standard streaming workflows and platforms. So here we have a lot of kind of usual suspects, right? You might be already using AWS with Media Live or CloudFront. Maybe you're using Wowza, or you're using the Cast to do your live sports, your live conferences. See, all of these systems already use HLS streaming. So our system can take what they output and then add our technology to do the translation, to do the AI dubbing. So really all we need is that manifest file that these systems output. When the manifest file is ready to go and you're actually live streaming, our system can dynamically read that manifest, add the necessary elements to it with VTT and subtitles and dubbing, and then deliver back an augmented manifest that's just going to work on any player. So it works really well. Go to the next slide. So here's basically the benefits of using HLS streaming, right? It's high cost effective. You know, I like, honestly, the fact that it's very flexible, that it works really well, that you can do it in a 24/7 live stream. But also that workflow integration is really critical, right? It's not easy sometimes to change your streaming workflow. And what we're trying to do is do something that fits within your existing workflow, that just kind of fits right in. There's no need to change anything. And it's highly scalable, right? So let's say you're doing 6, 10, 20 live events simultaneously, no problem. Our system is fully scalable. There's an entire platform built where you can have as many live streams going with as many channels as you want without having to worry about adding hardware or changing your workflow. And it can also be done programmatically, where we have our API ready to go in order to roll this out in a simple way. Okay, so now let's look at something new. This is actually what you're watching right now. You're actually watching the webinar here. I've muted it, but within that webinar, we're actually translating what I'm saying into all these different languages, right? We have the Spanish, there's a Spanish, there's Hindi, there's all kinds of languages there that are ready to go. And all we need is basically for you to select that particular language, right? So if I'm translating it to these languages, the system's just going to translate to all these languages in real time. And what we're going to do is we're going to share this so that people can actually watch it, right? Here it is in Hindi, for example. There's Japanese. And in this case, we're not doing the dubs, but we're translating it in real time. Now, there's different ways you could see this also. You could watch it on this player. Another way you could do it is you could go to a different page if you like. And I like to use this page, for example. Theo Player has a test page. So I can just go in and I can just load that M308 that I have all here. And then you could actually watch it there as well. And there it is, right? And then this has a more polished look as well. But essentially, we're going to be sharing that in the chat. If my moderator can share that URL in the chat and you guys could see it in real time, the actual live translation of this actual webinar. Okay. Okay, let's move on with the last part of the presentation, and we can get into the questions and answers segment. Here's something is really close to my heart, because for 20 years, I've been working with 608 captioning. And it's always been limiting because it's really been designed as an old technology to address North American broadcast television requirements for captioning. And this slide is basically talking about what's the difference between 608 captioning and HLS streaming with VTT, which is what we're sharing right now on the link. What's the difference? Okay. First of all, 608 captioning, single language channel. For broadcast, yes, you can put 4 channels, but no one uses that. You can have 2 channels sometimes, but for live streaming, these players are going to render channel number 1. So you're limited to 1 language for live streaming with 608. And then what about the language support? In the examples that we're sharing with you on the chat, the language support, we can do any language. We can do Japanese, Korean, Arabic, Hindi. There's no limit to the character set that we can use. But with 608, you have to use these Latin characters or characters that are 608 compatible. It typically requires a caption encoder. You have to go upstream and insert a single channel caption encoder, which can be very expensive. And because it's single channel, that means if you have multiple streams, you need multiple rack mount equipment. And there are ways to do the insertion of 608 on the cloud, which we can do as well, but that requires a transcode, which basically means you would have to feed your video to a mechanism that then inserts user data to your video. So your video has to be transcoded essentially, right, before the 608 can be added. And that can be hit or miss, right? If you're trusting a transcode just to add captioning, that could potentially, affect the quality of your video. And of course, it's designed for broadcast television. HLS streaming was designed for live streaming for the internet, okay? Now, before I get into it, sometimes when I talk about 608, people say, well, there is 708, right? What about 708? And 708 can support different character sets, and it's more scalable. You can do like 60 plus channels. For, I think, 10 years, I tried to push that. I literally built a piece of software that could add captioning in different languages and could do multiple, like 6, 10, 20 languages per stream. No player could play it. Not only that, but for live, there was no way to work with it, right? There was no hardware that could insert all these things and then somehow your player would render it. It was a non-starter. So what happens with a lot of these internet players, I'd say almost all of them, they're just looking at the 608. Even if there's 708 data in your stream, they're just looking at 608. So really it's about 608 when you're doing live streaming. Now the solution that we have, HLS streaming with VTT, VTT in itself is a sidecar file. So when we're streaming VTT, we can have as many as we want. We don't touch the video. There's a simple software solution, right? No transcoding, I already mentioned that. You can have as many as you want. There's unlimited channels. You can do any language. And there's the opportunity to introduce artificial intelligence, translation, and dubbing within that, because it's all about the HLS streaming protocol that allows this kind of scalable accessibility for any language, really. So it's superior, and in my view, HLS streaming with VTT and translations is really the future of accessibility for live video. If you are an AWS customer, we've built our solution with that in mind, because we are also AWS customers. So if you're using Elemental Media Live, you're using this workflow, you don't have to change it. If you're publishing to Amazon CloudFront, even if you add other Amazon components there, like Media Package, our system sits right on top of that in order to do all of this. It's a really neat workflow, and it can be kicked off programmatically, which is amazing. So if you're doing like 600 events this month that are live streaming with AWS Media Live, you can leverage SyncWords to make sure they're all captioned, they're all translated, and that they're delivered in a really simple way. There's a lot of benefits. I'm not going to go through all of the different benefits of AWS services and live streaming, but it's basically boils down to it's secure, it's synchronized, there's no changes to your existing workflow, and we have optimized our system to make sure it works like that. And we're really happy with that. And if you're using Media Live, or if you have people that know about this and want to do the captioning, this is really the way to go, because it's going to save you so much time and money to just introduce live captioning and translation into your existing live streaming workflow. Okay, so I'm going to now pause and go into our Q&A session because we're running short on time. Let's go ahead and get into it.
All right, thank you, Gia. So we have a few different questions. So someone's asking about the possibilities for automatic placement to avoid, covering, graphics and so forth.
Yeah, automatic placement is possible. One thing that you gotta keep in mind is that VTT, the good news about it is that the spec itself allows positioning. So it was really designed to support that, so you could move the captioning to the top, to the bottom, similar to the way 608 works. So it's a matter of just connecting a system that can automatically move the captions whenever it's needed. So that definitely is possible. It's something that we're going to be looking into. Okay.
And then we have a question from Dan, and he wants to see the user experience for managing the dictionary, the glossary, for training. I would recommend, Dan, you reach out to us and schedule a time with Gio or myself or someone from the team, and then we'll show you, we'll walk you through, those screens. Yeah,
Dan, it's really very simple to use. With our system, you basically log in, you set up your event, and within that, there's a button where you can import your dictionary and glossary, and that's it. So you could, if you have your dictionary and glossary ready to go, you can update it in just a few seconds for your event. And you can also leverage the dictionary and glossary through the API. So we'll be happy to show you that offline.
And then let me see. So there's another question here. So they're at, again, Dan has a lot of questions. So Dan has another question about, can this be used on premises?
Dan, yeah, we don't offer an on-premise solution, but what we can tell you is that we're working very closely with folks that are using AWS technologies to make sure that this is extremely secure. So we can talk to you about security if that's your concern. But really, this needs to be on the cloud in order to meet the level of demand for scalability, and that's what we're focused on.
We have another question, Gio, that Sam already answered in the chat, but I think it's a good question for the rest of the people attendees to hear, and it's asking about integration with social media platforms, and I'll tell you, what Sam answered, and that has to do with so the HLS and VTT and dub solution is not something that's well supported in social media because most social media platforms need 608 captions, right? Like Facebook or, and so forth.
Yeah. So the story is that, right? It's really on the ball court of social media to watch webinars like this one so that they can support the future of the way captioning should be. I can't imagine social media not wanting to support people that are live streaming in Japanese or live streaming in Hindi, right? If they're doing that, they should have closed captioning that is able to support these languages, right? Currently, in the case of most social media platforms, they're only supporting 608. So the only other way to do it is to transcode and burn in the subtitles into it, which is not a good way to do it, but it's the only way. But if they were able to support HLS ingest from say our system, there's really no need to do 608, and they could support all these languages. So I would love to talk to folks from product and social media to talk to them about this, because as you know, it's a global market now, and it's not just about supporting the basic languages nowadays. Hope that helps.
Yeah, very, very much. Thank you, Gio. So we have another question here, and so someone's asking if this will work on an event platform, and the example they gave is Excel events, but I think it applies, to Hopin, Feedloop, Cvent, and every, just pick your virtual event platform.
Yeah, the answer is yes. Most event platforms do have an HLS player that they can support for their main stage or their sessions. So if we can provide a player that has your live stream with all the different features, it's just going to work, right? We're not reinventing the wheel. This is a standard streaming protocol. So I would say yes, but there's always some gotchas there. So we'd be happy to work with Excel events or any virtual event platform to just confirm compatibility. But I don't see any hurdles there. I think it should work just fine.
Great. Let's see. We have another question about how music cues are handled.
Yeah, that's a good question. Although speech to text, has advanced a lot, you'll see that some speech to text is able to detect music cues, and then it can actually type the word music on there. You've seen that with speech to text engines like the Google engine and when you're streaming to YouTube. However, one thing I didn't mention is that our system can also work with a live human captioner. It doesn't have to be automatic speech. So if you're more comfortable to get the high accuracy with a human captioner, our system can receive a human captioner, and then we can do the translation and the AI dubbing from a human captioning input. So that is also possible.
Right. We have a similar question, one, from two different people, and I think it has to do with how we handle. So I'll just read one. So one says, if we have a webinar which is not live, it's pre-recorded, and it's, and they want to store it on their website for users to see, are we able to integrate SyncWords to do the captioning and dubbing And then similar question from Dan was, how does this solution work from live to VOD, right? So I think they're kind of similar. You know, one is purely VOD, the other one is something happens live and then you go to VOD.
Yeah. Okay. So the VOD is really interesting. You know, of course we have a video on demand aspect to SyncWords. We've had that for a long time. So what we're doing is we're launching a unified platform that will enable us to go from live to VOD quite easily, right? So after the event, it just has it ready to go, and we can even tailor it, synchronize it, you know, do other things to it, right, within a professional editor on the cloud. So yeah, there's a way to do that. Could you repeat the first question again? I'm sorry, I focused too much on that one.
No, and the second question was similar, and so Dan wanted to know how you can go from live to VOD in like kind of like a quick turnaround.
Yeah. So the plan is, yes, you know, there is a way to archive HLS streams. So once you go live, you just archive the HLS. Oftentimes that's already built into like a CDN workflow. Yeah, then the link is the same, and you can just, you know, view it from the beginning, right? Earlier on, I showed you like a clip of an archive stream that was already there. So there is the ability to immediately archive as soon as the stream is over.
Then we have another question I think was similar to musical cues. It's about sound cues, and but I think the same answer would apply, right? In that case.
Yeah, we can do it, and we can do a human captioner, no problem.
Yeah, and then someone is asking if we have our own player that, you know, that includes the subs and dubs and caps and stuff.
Yeah, I mean, you know, we don't need one. HLS players, there are many out there that you can use right off the shelf. Theo Player, for example, does a really good job. So we would just leverage, you know, a third-party player, and you can too. It's very inexpensive, and you can, you know, you get that level of support from them. But they're all going to work with our technology.
Great. I think that we've covered all of the questions that have come in so far. So if there's nothing else.
Yeah, I think there's a couple of things I saw that I wanted to answer before we conclude. One had to do with, someone was asking about like Akamai, or like say you have your own CDN that you'd like to work with. So that's no problem. You know, we can stream and push to your CDN. So if you have your own CDN that you prefer to use, you have a special deal with them for hosting. So we can push the subtitles and the AI dubs to your CDN to be hosted alongside your video. So we can use whatever you have as well. It's not just we're hosting it. That's not necessary. Okay, and in fact, we prefer if you host it, because then you have full control over it, right? So no problem there. Other aspects is, you know, like what about failures in 608? A lot of people have told us about that, right? So for example, if you have like 608 insertion failing, then yes, this is true. Your whole stream is down, right? You don't want that, right? That's risky. And I get you have to use 608 sometimes just from compatibility for social media and things like this. But with the HLS workflow, your stream remains untouched. So at any point you can switch back to your old manifest and you're going to be fine, right? And even if for whatever reason our system stops sending translations, which is unlikely, we're still just referencing your stream. So at no point will the stream really go down. You know, it's just not, it's not really like very risky at all with our technology versus the 608 cloud insertion. Okay, I think that covers it, most of it. I appreciate it, and I thank you so much for that. Actually, I see another question here. One last question. Someone asked, YouTube can take HTTP posts as a live caption source. Yes, this is true, but it's just transcoding the video, right? So if we have other elements there, like subtitles or dubbing, it's going to ignore that, right? Unless they push an update that will preserve other elements beyond the video. But they're doing an HLS pull just to transcode into their mechanism. So they're going to ignore any other elements that aren't, you know, video and audio there. So I hope that helps. But certainly, you know, they're looking at audio dubbing now for on demand. So hopefully they'll support ingest of audio dubs within the HLS HTTP. Okay. Well, thank you so much, everyone. We're out of time, but we appreciate all the questions. This video will be on demand, and we'd like to invite everyone, if you want to try our system with your live streams, please reach out to me. You can reach me at geo@syncwords.com, or you can just go to our website and put an inquiry. We'd love to hear from you. We'd love for you to try our system. It is really something special. We feel it's the future. And if you want to try it with your live stream, we can set that up for you so you could have other people in your organization take a look. Thank you so much for your time, and we hope to see you soon in our next webinar, where we're going to do a deeper dive into AWS workflows and our API. Thank you so much.